Members, good afternoon. It's the appointed time. We have a quorum. I call to order a meeting of the panel on transport. Now, the first agenda item is information papers issued since the last meeting. We have the administration's information paper on review findings on the issue of new private driving instructors licenses, as well as joint letter from Ms. KWOK Fu-yung, Mr. WONG Kai-chun, Tsuen Wan District Council member, dated 22nd of April 2026, expressing concerns and providing recommendations on the external transport planning for Ma Wan. Would members please note the two information papers, the details of which are set out in the agenda. The second agenda item is items for discussion at the next meeting. The next regular meeting will be held at 10:45 to 12:45 on 15th of May, Friday. The administration proposes to discuss the three following items: 7086T ISO Kunpo North South Link Road 6888TH widening of Yuen Long Highway section between Lam Tay and Tong Yan Sen Chun, and progress update on pedestrian related measures. Do members have any comments on the three items proposed to be discussed? If not, we will discuss the three items, and we are to have a special meeting at 4:30 p.m. on 30th of April. The administration will announce the item to be discussed in due course, but actually the special meeting will be held on 6th of May at 8:30 in the morning. Would members please reserve time to attend the relevant meeting? Let's move on to the third agenda item, 6202TB lift and pedestrian walkway system between Liking Hill Road and Litro Road, Kwai, Chung. As this is a funding proposal, would members please note that in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, members should disclose the nature of any direct or indirect pecuniary interest relating to the item under discussion before they speak on the item. We now have representatives from the administration coming inside the conference room. We have the team led by Ms. Amy Wong, Deputy Secretary for Transport and Logistics 1 of the Transport and Logistics Bureau. Members who would like to speak, please press the request to speak button now. I will ask Ms. Amy Wong to brief members on the paper. Thank you. The paper seeks members' views on the funding application for upgrading 202TB lift and pedestrian walkway system between Liking Hill Road and Litro Road, Kwai, Chung to Category A. Now, the area is very steep. It is about 20 meters high, and one would have to walk up 136 steps. It can be quite challenging for those who have mobility issues. In order to improve accessibility of the residential areas, community facilities, and transport facilities, and provide access for commuters, we propose to have the lift tower as well as the connecting infrastructure constructed between the uphill areas and Liking MTR station. We anticipate a daily usage rate of about 8,000 pedestrian trips. We expect in money of the day prices, the cost will be $188.4 million. The Highways Department already conducted parallel tendering in December of last year, and the return tender prices are reflected in the estimated costs. We hope to have member support. If we have the support of panel members, we will seek support from the Public Works Subcommittee as soon as possible, as well as the Finance Committee, to upgrade the relevant project to Category A. I will now ask Mr. Vincent Wong the Chief Highway Engineer Works Highways Department to brief members on the project, on the specific details. Thank you. There are 4 main parts to the project. We are to construct a lift tower at Liking Hill Road with 2 lifts, and 2, we will have a covered elevated pedestrian walkway connecting the lift tower to Licho Road of approximately 3 meters in width and approximately 45 meters in length, as well as a covered elevated pedestrian walkway approximately 3 meters in width and 14 meters in length connecting to the existing footbridge number NF113, as well as ancillary works to tie in with the infrastructure. This is the works plan. You can see there are 3 accesses for the lift tower. We have the highest one that is connecting to Licho Road through this covered elevated pedestrian walkway. The one in the middle will connect to the existing footbridge number F113. The one on the ground level will connect to Liking Hill Road. With this project completed, from Liking Station or the bus stop and minibus stop on Liking Hill Road northbound, they can take advantage of the existing footbridge NF113, and they will reach the middle access of the lift tower. And they can take this lift tower's lifts to the upper access to get to Licho Road. As for those getting off at the bus stops and minibus stops on Liking Hill Road southbound, they can take advantage of the ground level access, again taking the same lifts to get to the pavement on Licho Road. So basically, the project would connect Licho Road and Liking Hill Road despite the vertical level difference, so that citizens don't have to walk up the steps anymore. Let me talk about the challenges with this works project. Liking Hill Road has busy traffic. There's no easy way for us to construct lift infrastructure on the side. So we do face challenges in terms of environment and terrain. The contractor has to construct slope cutting works on a slope that has a 25 to 50 degree angle, and we can then form the site, and then we can undertake the foundation works. Afterwards, the contractor will have to transport large construction equipment to the slope to undertake further works. The second challenge we face is the traffic condition on the road. During a works, we must maintain the current traffic capacity. With this restriction, we have a very narrow construction site. It will restrict access of machinery and materials. It will affect works progress. Third, in the vicinity of the site, there are residential developments as well as community facilities. So we need to implement suitable mitigation measures to reduce the impact caused by the works to neighboring developments. Before works are undertaken, we will make sure to liaise with community stakeholders and, if necessary, adjust the work schedule. To expedite the project, we will make great use of the modular integrated construction method for the lift, tower, and ancillary infrastructure. We will make use of this construction method. Specifically, when we are undertaking the foundation works, the lift components as well as the pedestrian walkway components will be pre-installed or pre-assembled. When the foundation works are completed, we can directly put the pre-assembled components, basically transport them to the site and have them installed on site. We expect the project to be completed in about 3 years. Lastly, for the project cost and the proposed schedule. As the Deputy Secretary said, we expect that in money of the day prices, the cost of the project is approximately $188.4 million. The return tender prices are reflected in the estimated cost. We are now assessing the bids with our conclusion of the exercise, conclusion of tendering in December last year. We will seek support from the Public Works Subcommittee in May and in June from the Finance Committee. If we have received approval from the Council, we will commence the project in June. We expect to complete the project in 3 years. That's it for my presentation. Thank you. There are 7 members who have pressed the request to speak button. I read out the order in which members are going to speak. Mr. Chung, Mr. Chen Su-hong, Ms. KWOK Fu-yung, Ms. Christine Fong, Captain Lothair Lam, Dr. David Lam, Ms. Julia Lau, and myself. After Mr. Chung has spoken, I will draw the line. If members who are in the electrical complex and would like to speak, please come and press the request to speak button as soon as possible. I will assign a 3-minute time limit. Mr. Chung, thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions. I do support the project because this will benefit residents in the area, especially the elderly persons. From the paper, I can see that the project was first proposed in 2009, and all along the project has not been undertaken. And now, even with approval from LegCo, it would still take 3 years to construct, so it will be 20 years by then. It is not ideal. This is not exactly a large-scale project. I understand that there was some difficulty because the slope was privately owned. So in future, with works projects that will benefit the livelihood, if we face similar challenges where part of the land is privately owned, how can we be more innovative and take forward the project as soon as possible still? Now, it is also said that the modular integrated construction method will be used. What are the specific plans? Will we need to block the roads? Will there be large-scale road blocking? How often will it happen? Will the arrangements affect traffic in the area? Thank you. Ms. Amy Wong. Thank you, Mr. Chow, for your support. Indeed, the project has been undertaken, was proposed quite some time ago. We have to ensure safety, and the slope is very close to where works are to be undertaken. We have to wait until the relevant order is complied with before we can start our works. So we have to wait until the dangerous hillside order is complied with. We will in future maintain liaison with relevant stakeholders. when we undertake our works with road blockage. We will need to maintain traffic. There's only one lane on each side, so we kind of have to keep the roads open. If we have to block the roads, for example, when there are large-scale hoisting operations, we'll try to undertake them during nighttime to minimize the impact.
Any follow-up? No. Next member, Mr. Chen Siu-hong. Thank you, Chairman. I support the caption project, that is to lift and pedestrian walkway system between Liking Hill Road and Laicho Road. As Mr. Chow mentioned just now, it's been 4 years. Residents in the vicinity have been waiting for a long time for this to happen. Last year, when we had a meeting with the district councils, we already said that the administration could no longer drag its feet. Chairman, alongside members, went to the site to conduct a visit. We need to meet the pressing needs of the residents living in the area. It is hoped that the project will be commissioned soon. I'm glad to see that at least we have an update of the project. For me, I have an engineering background. I can see that the topography is quite complicated. Indeed, if we need to build a lift and pedestrian walkway system on such a topography, it is indeed quite difficult. I can see that the administration has already given some thought to it. After the return tender, the government is still considering it right now. $100 million is there further room for compression, for further reduction of the costs? I'm not going to ask this at this meeting. I'm going to follow up on it at the Public Works Committee's Public Works Subcommittee regarding the Universal Accessibility Program. We mentioned the introduction of the lift smart control system. The effectiveness is shown to be quite good. I'd like to ask if such a smart system will be installed in the lift and pedestrian walkway system in Kwai, Chung. Just now, as Mr. Chow mentioned, he expressed concern over transportation arrangements. And I'm going to ask about air pollution control and noise pollution control. Some measures have been mentioned in the paper, but indeed the area of construction is in close proximity to the residential areas. So I'd like to ask about the noise control and air pollution control measures. What concrete measures are you going to put in place? Thank you, Chairman. Deputy Secretary, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for his support. I'm going to take the second question first, and I'm going to ask the highways to provide information about the first question. As we can see from the pictures, indeed, the site is very close to the residential areas. That's why, as I mentioned, we're going to use MIC construction approach. We aim to complete some construction procedures outside the construction site, and on the site we're going to conduct insulation procedures. The purpose is to reduce the noise generated. We want to minimize nuisance caused to residents living nearby. I'm going to ask the Highways Department to provide information on the lift intelligence access system. This system is being piloted under the Universal Accessibility Program. We are looking into its effectiveness. If it is effective, we will pilot it in this project. We might introduce it to the current project if it is effective. Mr. Chen, excuse me, I'd like to ask. In the pilot project, it was shown to be quite efficient or effective. Now that the administration is saying that they are going to investigate the effectiveness of the system, and if it is effective, they may consider introducing it to the lift and pedestrian walkway system. Can you give me more details, Mr. Wong? At present, we are piloting this system under the Universal Accessibility Program. The area has less footfall. However, for lift towers as high as 7 floors, we haven't yet tried it in such a location. That's why we will have to pilot it in this upslope system to see if it will be as effective. Thank you. Ms. KWOK Fu-yung. Thank you, Deputy Chair. I express my recognition for the administration. I appreciate its efforts in relation to infrastructure projects in the district. Many members of the public are exposed to bad weather when they need to move around in this area, especially elderly people. And this project is going to benefit 8,900 elderly people and those who have difficulty moving around. So I was a district councillor in that location. So of course I support this project. I'd like to ask about the timeline of the project, which is going to take 3 years. When a lot of members of the public are waiting for the completion of the project, I'd like to ask, in the 3 years of construction process, will part of the facilities or barrier-free access be open to members of the public in phases in order to improve their lives gradually? Just now, member referred to places with different title ownership, and this affects the progress of having barrier-free construction facilities. This issue has been around for 20 years, and it affects the land resumption of a total of 564 square meters. The Highways Department, the Lands Department, the Housing Department, the right of roads cuts across different departments. It even has to do with private roads, so I'd like to know whether the government has consolidated experience when it comes to handling easement or right of roads. Is it possible to remove red tape? Is it possible to enhance coordination and shorten the time of approval in order to commission a project as soon as possible? Take the Shackley Estate lift system as an example. These lift systems are prone to errors or defaults. Regular emergency repairs aren't good to residents. I'd like to know if any standard will be introduced to the construction works in order to ensure the long-term stability of the lift system. So in short, whether these facilities can be open to the public in phases and whether red tape can be removed. And my last question relates to room for ensuring and enhancing safety and stability. Deputy Secretary, thank you, Ms. KWOK, for your recognition and support. Regarding the construction time, it's going to take 3 years as we predict. As we have already said, it is subject to the construction site constraints. It is very narrow, and the slope is very steep as well. At the same time, it's close to the residential areas and community facilities, hence the restrictions. Our team will take forward this project at full pelt, and we know that members of the public have been waiting for this project for a long time. In light of the difficulty and the narrow roads, we estimate that it would be quite difficult for us to open part of the facilities to the public in phases. That said, we're going to explore with the contractors to identify any room for opening the facilities in phases. The Development Bureau has done a lot on title ownership. They also looked at how they can remove red tape and remove barriers. We'll continue to work hand in hand with the Development Bureau in this regard. Regarding repairs, the Highways Department has commission the EMSD to conduct regular repair maintenance on elevators. The contractors will, every week, conduct regular inspection and repair on the lifts. If needed, appropriate repair will be arranged. In case of any default report, within an hour, the contractor needs to attend to the matter. And when someone is trapped inside the lift, within half an hour, the staff members will have to arrive. Please keep your answers succinct. Thank you. Ms. Christine Fong, thank you. I express my great support for the lift and pedestrian walkway system between Licking Hill Road and Lai Chou Road, Kwai, Chung. For such upslope lift construction works, in 2009, when I was still a district councillor, I was already supporting this project. Regarding this project with a price tag of $188.4 million, I express my full support for the project. I hope that the Highways Department and the Transport and Logistics Bureau will work faster to respond to the calls of members of the Council regarding this construction of 20.7 meters. I believe we can adopt another technologies that is now being applied in the Anderson site. I believe this will expedite the project. Actually, I support your project. This is the 18th project of 2009, and you are going to make it happen. What about the escalator works project in Chung? It is the 14th item on the list. Well, Mr. Leung, the then chief executive, didn't mention any impact about the construction price. Elderly people will have to walk up the stairs. And we are now talking about one that has a height of 80 meters. Well, I mean, in principle, I support you, but then you do not have any timeline for the project in Hong Sing Gardens. Just now you said 8,900 are going to benefit from the project, whereas 20,000 people are living in that area. In Hong Sing or Choi Lam, there are 30,000 people living there, including civil servants and schools. Why don't you just work in the project in Chung? There are 30,000 people living there. Can you tell us more about the mechanism? DS, Ms. Fong, thank you for your support for the project, and I understand your concern over the project in Chung. We're keeping a close watch on the project there. As we mentioned, 80 meters, that is about 25 floors to 30 floors. There is a freshwater mains measuring 900 mm diameter. We also need to factor in the construction cost. So when it comes to the cost effectiveness, we have been monitoring it. We have been thinking how we can enhance it. We are working on this. Ms. Fong, well, I'd like to say that nothing in engineering works is insurmountable. It's definitely worthwhile to make it happen. Well, you need to improve the pavement on To Lok Road. Thank you.
Captain Lothar Lam. Thank you, Chair. I support the project for the lift and pedestrian walkway system. I have two questions. Right now, from Licking Station to Licking Hill Road, there is minibus service. We will in future encourage more people, I believe, that will take advantage of minibus service. Have you communicated with contractors to make sure we will adjust the minibus routes to take advantage of the infrastructure? the highways department also have energy saving features. For example, will we be making use of solar panels for the infrastructure? Thank you. I will ask the transport department representative to answer the first question, and then the second question I'll have the highways department representative answer a relevant question. Regarding minibus service, we have been maintaining close liaison with minibus companies. We have been monitoring operations of minibus service in the area. We believe we have 91A route going past this area to get to Metro Plaza. We believe the impact is minimal. We will monitor the operations. If necessary, we will work with the operator to adjust the service. Anything to add? Regarding solar panels, the project is quite close to Yin Lai Court and Yut Lai Court. We expect the work's efficiency to have energy saving infrastructure to not be too high, but we will definitely explore the different options. If we consider it feasible and the benefits outweigh the costs, we will make use of renewable energy. Any follow-up from Captain Luther Lam? If not, Dr. David Lam. Thank you, Chair. I have a few simple questions. I want to ask if there will be stairs even though we have lifts, because we do want to encourage people to take the stairs. I also want to ask for the 75 trees to be removed. Where are they going to be replanted? I also want to follow up on what other members asked about renewable energy infrastructure. Now the tower is vertical, so there's really no space for solar panels. But I want to ask, in future, if we can, will we install solar panels on the rooftops of public premises to encourage the use of renewable energy? Thank you. Miss Amy Wong. Well, we will not remove the 136 steps that are originally there. People can still take the stairs. As for the questions on trees and renewable energy, I will ask the highways department representative to answer the relevant questions. We have 99 trees in the works area. 24 of them will be preserved. 75 will be removed. 59 of the new trees and 360 shrubs will be planted in the area in compensation. As for renewable energy, if we consider it to be beneficial, we will implement such infrastructure in other projects. Ms. Julie Lau. I support the project, but I have two questions. We have been trying to move towards being carbon neutral with the use of materials, especially for the lifts. Will we be able to make use of temperature reducing paint on the facade so as to reduce heat, and therefore we will need less energy in air conditioning? You will be making use of the MIC method. Is it the case that you will have some new standards? If you have an answer to this question, I will not repeatedly ask this question. We have other members ask about solar panels, so I will not ask about it. Ms. Christine Fong actually talked about the project in Lung Yok Tau. I think we can really incorporate the relevant concepts in the project to introduce arts and cultural elements. If possible, if we're not restricted much by the budget, we can try to introduce such elements in future projects. The department may also consider introducing such elements because it may not seem like much, but locals and visitors think this is an important way to showcase the neighborhood's culture. I will ask the Highways Department representative to answer the relevant questions. Thank you. Regarding the lift infrastructure, there is a mechanical ventilation system. We will not have air conditioning. For the mechanical ventilation system, it has a high-speed fan so that temperature in the lift and outside will be more or less the same. This is part of the energy saving infrastructure. As for modular integrated construction method, as long as it is practicable, we will make good use of the MIC method. Excuse me, I'm not asking if the MIC method will be used. Are you using paint for the facade of the lift tower infrastructure? You don't know just yet? Well, the MIC method constructed lift tower will make use of glass as a facade, and in a way it is reducing heat and energy saving. Thank you. Mr. Yu Pak-leung, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chair. When I read about this project, I remember way back in 2008 when I was a district councillor for Lambton, a similar project was undertaken. It was from a residential development to the MTR station. Kwai District is an aged neighborhood, and I do support the project because we are trying to promote elderly-friendly facilities. However, it has been 10 odd years since it was last proposed. And if we think about inflation, there is a significant increase in costs. Anyway, I'm just glad to see the project finally launch. And when we talk about Lambton MTR Exit A, there's only there are only escalators, there are no lifts. We have over 100,000 people living in Lambton. There's great demand for such facilities, and in Lambton West, they have been asking for this for many years to have a lift tower, but I think it's not even on the list yet. It has been 10 or to 20 years since the idea was first floated. I hope that we can have a lift tower in the area for those who need such facilities. Thank you. Ms. Amy Wong, thank you. I understand there are different needs in different districts, different locations. We will first deal with the projects on the list. We will try to expedite progress, and then we'll review needs in different areas. Thank you. All right, Mr. Chung Ho-fung. Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would like to say I support the construction of a lift and pedestrian walkway system. From what I know, from Liking Hill Road to the top of the hill, there is going to be a lift and pedestrian walkway system, and at the hilltop we have the Princess Margaret Hospital facilities, and I believe a lot of people need to go there. I think there is a connection that is lacking from a housing estate up to the Princess Margaret Hospital Liking building. Will you have plans to have a lift system that will connect the facilities? I also want to ask about the usage rate. If we look at the map from exit A1 of Liking Station, there's a pedestrian crossing that is signal controlled and one can just cross this to get to the opposite side. And if you have an egress there, people will not take advantage of the footbridge. Now, with the lift tower, it will get to Yutlai Court. With this pedestrian footbridge that crosses Lai King Hill Road, will you remove it in future? For example, for Yin Lai Court, I understand that the footbridge extends to the upper level of Yin Lai Court, and those living on the lower floors can be seen by those walking on the footbridge. Would you have plans to remove the footbridge? Ms. Amy Wong, thank you, member, for your support. According to frontline officers' observations, many want to take advantage of the facilities from Lai King Station to the pedestrian road. If they want to travel at grade, they can go on the ground level and they can make use of a direct access and get to the lift tower. We believe it is convenient for different groups, so at this stage we do not have any plans to remove the pedestrian footbridge. As for another lift system, we will head back and review relevant information and get back to the member after the meeting. Mr. Lam Wai-kong pressed the request to speak button after we have drawn the line. We still have some time. I will let Mr. Lam Wai-kong ask his questions. Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would like to express my support for the project. I heard the presentation. I'm most concerned about the traffic arrangements. We will be making use of the MIC method for the project. From what I know, they need to apply for a permit to transport cargoes that exceed certain length or certain width before they can transport such materials on roads, and such permit is generally available during the night time. But the works site would need the materials only after 7 in the morning. So there's about a 1 hour difference. There's no way for them to really stay on the road in the interim period. Can the transport department make suitable adjustments for the long load and wide load permits, or would you coordinate the site personnel to receive the materials early? Mr. Thomas Wong, thank you. Chair, indeed, the pre-assembled components under the MIC method will be a bit longer, and often a long load permit will be needed. In our experience, the hoisting operations for MIC components would have to be undertaken during nighttime anyway, and the next morning the vehicular lanes would have to be made available for use by citizens, so the operation should be completed during nighttime. Thank you. I am the last one to speak. I would like to express support for the project. When I was district councillor or electoral member for the constituency early on, I have already been calling for this project to be undertaken. And when Kwai district councillors visited Lechko, many councillors provided great comments, and the Highways Department has taken on board the suggestions. So I thank the Highways Department for trying to really undertake this project, heeding the calls of district councillors and Lechko members. If you have taken the steps before, and members have done that earlier. It is very tough, and having lifts would definitely help. The MIC method will be used. It will expedite the progress of the project. So overall, I would support the project, and I would like to express my appreciation. I hope that we will have more uphill lifts and escalators projects undertaken because it can benefit the public. It may cost much over $100 million, but it will greatly help the public. I hope the administration can take on board the calls of district councillors and electrical members. Even being in a difficult fiscal position, we should expedite these minor works projects. Thank you. I don't really need a response.
So members who have spoken support this project. We are going to submit the project to the Public Works Subcommittee. Thank you, members. Next agenda item. The proposed regulatory framework for new mass transit systems. Let's invite the administration representatives to join us.
好啦，想就呢一項
Members who would like to ask questions, please press the button to request to speak. Please switch on the mic for Deputy Chair.
公平啊嘛，課你。
We need to be fair, right? All right. We have with us Ms. Mabel Chan, Secretary for Transport and Logistics. And Mr. Kirk Yip, Ms. Amy Wong, Deputy Secretaries, Ms. Ada Lai, Principal Assistant Secretary, Ms. Emily Ng, Principal Assistant Secretary, as well as representatives from other departments, that is the EMSD, Electrical and Mechanical Services Department. Take your time, Secretary. All right. Secretary, wish you speedy recovery. Please take us through the paper. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Members, good afternoon. We're going to have a packed agenda today, so I'm gonna make good use of my time. Together with my team, I'm going to introduce the proposed regulatory framework for new mass transit systems, as well as the relevant framework for operators. We will consult members' views. I'm going to say a few words, and then I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Kirk Yip to take the members through the salient points of the framework with a PowerPoint presentation. A well-connected transport network improves a city. It's key to the stability and prosperity of a city, especially when we need to drive economic development and dovetail with the 15th Five-Year Plan of our nation. That's why the government has been planning well the transport infrastructure, and we're moving towards smart mobility. We are taking forward Kai-chun, Kowloon East, Hon KWOK, the smart and green mass transit systems over there, as well as other new railway projects. We have been advocating a dual innovation and policy mindset. We're going to use an open tender approach. We want to, through competition, enhance the quality of operators. so that we can select the most appropriate and cost-effective mass transit system and operator. We want to use systems and methods that are not used in Hong Kong at present. We want to introduce new technologies or even operators. We want to use these methods and operators' expertise to take forward the projects that could not be implemented in Hong Kong due to technical difficulties. We want to promote community development through infrastructure projects to benefit society. Now we want to plan ahead in advance to introduce a brand new regulatory framework. In our regulation of the land-based public transportation operators and services, our framework targets specific traffic operators or means of transport. Looking forward, we're going to introduce a technical neutral, universal and standardized framework to regulate systems characterized by a centralized computer system. We need to take forward software development, hardware development, and we need to grasp the opportunities brought about by technological developments from either the perspective of policy or regulation. We're going to listen to members in relation to the proposed regulatory framework for new mass transit systems. We need to be targeted, we need to be flexible, and above all, we need to have certainty that when operators of the systems are interested in submitting tenders, they need to have a good understanding of the government's requirements. And we will provide for regulation in relation to primary legislation. However, at the same time, we want to give operators flexibility and space or room to lay down subsidiary legislation as well as other franchise terms. The aim is that in different stages, we want to set down suitable regulatory requirements. I understand the public attaches much importance to the performance of operators as well as the stability of the system. That's why we will factor them in primary legislation. We also want to stay attuned to the existing situation in Hong Kong so that we can have a most up-to-date and comprehensive regulatory framework. There is dedicated legislation or subsidiary legislation for each project. We want to have a more comprehensive approach. We want to have standardized approach so that there won't be any inconsistencies in the future. Quite a few members have given us very useful and constructive views. This time, we are coming to the panel on transport, and we want to explain to members and respond to members. Regarding service regulation, fare mechanism, incident follow-up mechanisms, some members have provided us with their views regarding innovative technologies or for regulatory frameworks which aren't available as yet. We want to cover all the bases or even the unlimited possibilities that we may see in the future. We want to capture them all. We're going to listen to members carefully, and then we will continue to flesh out the details of the proposed regulatory framework. We'll continue to communicate with members so that we can formulate the most suitable framework. Well, Secretary has already told us quite some salient points about the framework. I hope Mr. KWOK Yip will be succinct. Thank you. Mr. Yip, thank you. I'm going to take members through the proposed regulatory framework. As the Secretary said, for railways, buses, minibuses, for these land-based means of transport, there is legislation regulating these means of transport. There are going to be new technologies or systems. So one of the very important goals of the regulatory framework is to provide for regulation of the transport operators. As the Secretary mentioned, for the proposed regulatory framework, it will be technology neutral, universal, and standardized. We will plan ahead in order to grasp the opportunities brought about by technological developments. We will also list the terms very carefully. The aim is to prevent any impact on existing public transport operators or services. That's why the proposed regulatory framework will not cover the transport systems or operators that already have existing legislation, such as franchise buses and the MTRCL. We will provide flexibility, and we will also give the administration flexibility in relation to technology or suitable regulation targeting the operators. Regarding the proposed regulatory framework, there are four main tiers. One, primary legislation in relation to franchise, system, security, and so on. And the second one has to do with subsidiary legislation, which allows us to regulate the services of the operators. And the third tier, or the third layer, is franchise terms. The CE in Council will specify the terms when they grant franchise. These are the core requirements. Well, Mr. Yip, can you be even more succinct? Secretary, well, I propose moving to the last timeline, and we can see the timeline of this regulatory framework. If need be, we may respond to members with the PowerPoint presentation we have already provided. So probably we're going to talk about the timeline now. All right, thank you. Today we have come to the panel on transport to listen to members' views. Afterwards, we'll work on the legislative formulation, and then we're going to introduce it to the Council for scrutiny in early 2027. With the support and approval of the Council, we're going to introduce the granting of franchises for different systems, such as the system in Kai-chun. We expect in early 2027 we will be able to grant franchise. And after that, we have Kowloon East, Hon KWOK, and for the next step, we may even grant a franchise for the Hong Kong-Shenzhen West Rail Link. Thank you. 18 members in total have pressed the button to request to speak. For those who would like to ask questions, please come to the conference room to request to speak as soon as possible. We have Mr. Yu Ming, Mr. Chen Siu-hong, Mr. Adrian Ho, Tam Chen Kwok, Kitson Yang, Mark Chong, Chao Su-chung, Captain Lam, Andrew Lam, Lee Chen Kang, Chung Pui Kong, Ms. Christine Fong, Ms. Julia Lau, Mr. Perry Yu, Deputy Chair Lam Wai Kong, Mr. Eric Yim, Bill Tang, and me, a total of 18 members. I give each member 3 minutes. Mr. Yu Ming, please. Thank you. Regarding the introduction of a new system, this will improve the local transport network. Of course, I support it. But members of the public are most concerned about transport fares. A fare adjustment mechanism is very important. Drawing reference from the mechanism of the MTRCL, the formula has been up and running for a long time. However, members of the public are concerned about transparency. For the operators, even when they have significant profits, there have been fare increases, and in the past 10 years, there was just once reduction in fares. This gives the public a negative impression. So I'd like to know, within the current proposed regulatory framework for new mass transit systems, will there be fairer and more transparent mechanism so that the operability and the sustainability of the system can be enhanced, and this will also ensure that it will stay affordable to the public.
Secretary, thank you, Mr. Yu, for the questions on the fares. We have 4 principles. We will make sure the fares will be regulated by the government. We will make sure to strike a balance between the affordability of whether the public can afford it and public acceptance and financial viability of operator. We want to have the fare adjustment mechanism included in the franchise agreement so as to enhance transparency and be more objective. When we draw up the tendering document, as this is something new, we will make sure to include in the tendering document a preliminary range for fares, having considered commute needs of citizens and the transportation situation in the area. We want to be transparent in the tendering document so that we have more bargaining power, essentially. So for interested operators, they will submit their proposals, which would include financial arrangements, and we would score these specific areas. Thank you. Mr. Chen Su-hong. Thank you. I welcome the administration in setting up a new framework for the smart and green mass transit system so that we can introduce different projects into Hong Kong. I also appreciate the government maintaining flexibility in the regulatory framework so as to accommodate new systems. I thank Mr. KWOK for holding briefing sessions in advance so we have a good understanding of what's going on. Due to time constraints, I would just talk about some of my concerns. For the proposed regulatory framework, specifically, how is it different from the regulatory frameworks for MTR and bus services? What new regulatory powers are there? If you don't have such information at the moment, can you provide such information after the meeting so that we know how the new regulatory framework would empower the administration in its management of the smart and green mass transit systems? On the same vein, for large-scale commercial automated public transport systems, in future, for example, we will have autonomous buses. They will have designated routes and they are centrally controlled. Will this regulatory framework be applicable to such infrastructure projects? Also, we will have a validity period for property development power for the Kai-tech project. We will provide powers to the future operator for planning and development. We will also provide some sort of financial assistance. But with the franchise period ending after 20 years, if the operator will no longer operate the project, what will happen to the development rights? Thank you. There are 3 questions. I will give a brief response. If we go over time, we can perhaps discuss the issues after the meeting. From construction to operations to maintenance, these areas will all be covered under the regulatory framework. Especially because it covers construction, it is different from existing franchise laws. As we see commercial operation of autonomous vehicles, we will review existing legislation for autonomous vehicles to see if anything can be made use of. I think we don't really have to box ourselves in right now in terms of direction. As for property development, with public tendering, we will allocate some land for development as an incentive, but we will not be making use of the property plus development model like we did for the MTR. We want to have developments to attract more passenger traffic. What's most important is that we will have public tendering and the bids will be submitted by the bidders. Well, will there be an expiry of the validity period? We'll move on to the next member, Mr. Adrian Ho. I have some very brief questions. Will we have the MTRC taking part in the tendering? Of course, the MTRC has its edge. It may be given priority. How can we make sure there is no domination by the operator in tendering? Will we have rationalization of services with buses and minibuses? Will the systems affect passenger sources for existing bus routes and other public transport operators? Has the government conducted any assessments? Secretary. Thank you. We welcome the MTRC submitting a bid, but we will have the procedures being fair and open in the approval process. If the MTRC is planning to extend its existing railway connections, we will discuss some priority with them in accordance with our agreement with the MTRC. If the MTRC takes part in the tendering, they will be subject to fair assessments just like other potential operators. They will be subject to regulation under the new regulatory framework just like other potential operators. With the operations of the systems such as the one in the Kai-chun area, we would specify in the tendering documents that the potential operators have to accommodate for the operations of existing public transport operators so that their service will complement that of existing operators. In future, we'll gauge passenger demand developments in the specific neighborhoods to rationalize the services. Whether there is actual need for rationalization, we will have dynamic assessments with reference to passenger demand. Thank you. Mr. Tam Chen Kwok. As the Secretary said, we will have smart and green mass transit systems in 3 areas of the city. As we see developments in innovative technology, we should have some great new systems. I support the government's proposal to have a regulatory framework for different transportation models and maintaining flexibility to accommodate new technology for the improvement of transportation network. Regarding the regulatory framework, the administration will have specific requirements for the governance of the operator as well as maintenance of effective services. Otherwise, there may be financial penalties. I want to ask if the government will have some requirements for a staff schedule. For example, the Hon Kai-chun new development area will be served by a smart and green mass transit system. We already see some population intake of some private housing developments. There is great demand for transportation of residents. So I want to ask if the government will make sure the project will be on schedule so as to allow citizens to make use of convenient transportation as soon as possible. I also want to talk about the proposed fare levels. We have often heard citizens complain fares will only be adjusted upwards. How can we make sure we will not have something similar happening in future? Secretary, thank you. Regarding what is said by the member about population intake in Hon Kai-chun and any specific regulatory needs, we can consider specifying some conditions in the franchise agreement. Regarding the franchise terms, they will be included in the principal ordinance or principal legislation. In future, if necessary, we will discuss with individual operators the specific conditions in the franchise agreements. As for what the member said about fare levels and fare adjustment mechanism, as I said earlier, these will be regulated by the government. This is very important. We will strike a balance between what the public can afford and public acceptance, as well as the long-term financial viability of operators. We will have a direct drive formula. We will also introduce some sort of affordability cap requirement to address the concerns raised by the member. Mr. Yang Wing-kit, thank you, Chair. Overall speaking, I support the proposed regulatory framework for smart and green mass transit systems. I have some concerns on the fare adjustment mechanism. However, the fare adjustment mechanism is quite similar to that of the MTRC. I think the mechanism is enhanced, however. For the productivity factor for the MTRC, they will earn $10 billion and they will have a 0.8 productivity factor that is reducing the fare percentage. I believe with the enhanced framework, it can really benefit the public. But then I still have some concerns. With the MTRC's fare adjustment mechanism, even when we're at the troughs of the economic cycle, there is not much decrease in MTR fares. So for this new mechanism, can we introduce a GDP factor when GDP is in the negative? It can be reflected in the fare adjustment mechanism. Next, on service performance, we will have fines or financial penalties under the framework. Before we have criticized the MTRC's mechanism, we think if we can introduce service performance in the formula, it will be better than just having financial penalties. While this is a direct drive formula, I think it's very important to have the Executive Council play a gatekeeper role. Citizens will be more reassured. Thank you. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Yang, for the questions. In the fare adjustment mechanism, we have a direct drive formula. And we will also consider some objective data such as CPI changes, wage index changes. We also have a productivity factor as well as an affordability cap requirement. We also are being innovative. We have a preliminary range of fare levels. We have, before we publish the tendering document, done some surveys, so we kind of have an idea of the supposed fare levels. As for service performance, when there are incidents or when there's less than ideal service performance, we have discussed before how, say for the MTRC's mechanism, how we can really have the formula or otherwise reflect service performance and provide more incentives for them to improve their service performance. For the smart and green mass transit systems, we will include this as part of the reviews of renewal of franchise. We will also have some conditions for suspension. We will have some sort of mechanism to follow up on incidents. We will ask the EMSC to consider safety and efficiency of services and to try to really improve our regulation with our existing legal framework. Mr. Chung Ho-fung.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree that we need to have a piece of technology-neutral legislation before we handle different matters in relation to the transport system with subsidiary legislation. But what matters most is having a fair adjustment mechanism with initial fares. Yes, indeed, we can draw reference from the fares of other public transportation services. And you have already autonomized the fare adjustment mechanisms. And indeed, I should have given you full support. Now you're using the system or the mechanism used by the MTRCL. That is because they have a strong financial backing, and the Hong Kong government has 75% of the shares of the MTRCL. That is exactly why they can do so. But for transport operators that are not as financially robust, or for new transport operators, how can you ensure that this mechanism is effective and sustainable? Why don't we use an automatic mechanism that is linked to inflation? In this new legislation, it allows the participation of non-local companies. I'd like to know the rationale behind this. Is it because there are non-local companies that have already expressed interest? Now we're using the approach of tender first, legislation afterwards. We can see that for the MTRCL, tender was invited in October, but only this year it was passed. What if there are any differences between the legislation when it is drafted and the final legislation? How are you going to deal with the details? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chung, for his views. After all, we want objective figures. We also want it to better reflect the economic situation in Hong Kong, especially in the transportation sector. We want the targeted wage changes to be reflected in the mechanism. That's why, as we have already set out in the paper, we don't just use the inflation as an objective figure to draw reference from on how we can make sure that the requirements will be complied with by the contractors. In the framework of the franchise, we request certain requirements in relation to corporate governance. We also require that the board of directors we also request that the government will appoint more than 3 directors to the board of directors. We have already conducted open tenders. We have seen mainland or overseas operators or constructors that have expressed interest. Therefore, we want to allow non-Hong Kong companies to set up new companies in Hong Kong. That's why they can work on the Hongshou-Qiu-Tianhai Railway. In the end, when it comes to operation, we want them to register in Hong Kong. We want a unit in Hong Kong, despite the fact that they may be incorporated outside Hong Kong. Thank you. Mr. Chao Siu-chung. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask questions about service quality, especially the monitoring of safety. When there are safety incidents in the MTRCL, the EMSD has a regulatory or a monitoring role. They will instruct the MTRCL to prepare a report. The MTRCL has been running in Hong Kong for a long time, and the Hong Kong government is a major shareholder of the MTRCL. So when the government conducts, or when the MTRCL rather conducts safety checks, members of the public will feel assured. So I'd like to ask whether the government will exercise more regulatory or monitoring power over the new companies in order to give members of the public peace of mind. Just now, Mr. Chen referred to the railway plus property model. There will be ongoing proceeds from properties, but for this system, say for example, there are 10 stations, and when you grant franchises, probably 10 years, within 10 years, they will have developed all properties. And when they have already earned some money after 10 years, they may choose to leave. They may say, I'm not going to join anymore. So how can you make sure that the government will take over the company in a seamless manner? Will there be new tenders? The technologies may involve different patents. How can you make sure that this will be handled well? Secretary, thank you. Thank you for your quite meaningful questions. First of all, we are concerned with the safety of the systems. That's why we have an incident mechanism, we have investigation mechanism, and so on. I'd like to share 5 points with you. First of all, we will empower the government to instruct an inspector to conduct an investigation and follow up. The purpose is to monitor the safety of the system. Regarding the construction of the system, we need to make sure that the operation is safe. We will also require the contractor to have repair and maintenance procedures. And we will require a technology-neutral, standardized, and universal procedure. We will also put in place an incident reporting mechanism and investigation mechanism. Lastly, some acts that threaten the safety of the system will be criminalized. Just now, Mr. Chen and Mr. Chow referred to a point that is very important. I'd like to talk about this point. Some pieces of land will be used for property development. In Kai-chun or East Kowloon or even the Hong KWOK project, we will invite tenderers to submit their tender documents with 2 envelopes. In one envelope, that will include the financial proposal, whereas in the other, that will include the technical suggestions or proposals. In the course of the franchise, when there are any issues that have to do with property development or financial matters, we require the franchisee to make guarantee. And there will also be a custody account set up by a third party to make sure that when there are any issues in the future, the government can take over the company and can allow another operator to continue to operate the company. Thank you. Captain Lam. Thank you, Chairman. I speak in support of the proposed regulatory framework for new mass transit systems. In the future, there will be four projects. In addition to Hongshi-Q Tianhai, the other 3 are new mass transit systems, and they may be using different technologies. Has the government conducted any assessment whether more manpower is needed? We have the railway office. When there are 3 new systems, will there be 3 different parties overseeing these 3 systems? Will there be a new mass transit system branch overseeing these new technologies? Next, in relation to fare adjustment mechanisms, these are actually low to medium carrying capacity transportation systems. But the financial pressure will not be light. In Kai-chun, there will be land development rights. For the other 2 projects or the other 2 railways, I believe there are concrete ideas. In a northern metropolis, there are many development projects, but how many development rights have been given back to the developer? Regarding the regulatory framework for new mass transit systems, I'd like to write on this topic to ask the administration a question. Have you conducted any assessment in relation to the impact of this new mass transit system on traditional means of transport? At present, we rely on public buses and minibuses to connect more remote areas with the MTR stations. If we have these new mass transit systems, this may have an impact on traditional means of transport. Singapore and Shenzhen are different. All public transport is operated by the government. The government provides subsidies, so I'd like to know how the government will strike a balance between the introduction of new system and the interests and rights of different public transport operators. Thank you. Secretary, I thank Captain Lam for his views. I thank him for referring to the regulatory requirements of our manpower. Going forward, we are going to see 3 projects using new mass transit systems, while for Hongshui-Q Tianhai Western Rail Link there will be a new contractor. The EMSD or the Transport Department, to them, these new systems are new systems. We need to have a good framework, and then we need to empower the departments with certain authority. Regarding manpower arrangements, we are going to conduct assessments in due course. For these new mass transit systems, heavy rail, non-mass transit systems, this new system actually fills the gap between these 2 set systems to complete the transport network. In our transportation strategy blueprint, we have already included these new projects. In the coming 40 years, the government will take a consolidated view of the ecosystem of public transportation and calls from the public. We want these different systems to complement one another in order to drive the local economic development. We expect increase in the demand in public transportation among members of the public. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Lam, this regulatory framework comes at the right time, and it is indeed a necessary framework. In the introductory speech given by the Secretary, this new system needs to have tolerance. It needs to be targeted. It is a new system. Hong Kong uses a public transportation service system. How competitive will this new system be? The feeling that I have is that it presents a major challenge. Against such a backdrop, there may be changes in the business environment, or for investment or operation decisions, this will affect the sustainability of the businesses. It's possible for this to happen. Asset disposal, procurement, interest. Under what circumstances legislation will come in to provide regulation? The fine details are difficult. It requires a lot of skills and thought. Different from MTRCL, MTRCL cannot just leave the company. We need to compare the existing new regulatory framework with the framework for existing legislation. This is not an easy task, but we need to take the first step. Thank you.
Secretary, thank you, Mr. Lam, for the questions. I think we need to be innovative while playing a gatekeeper role. We need to make sure there is competitiveness of operators. So for the operators submitting bids, we will consider the technology as well as their financial viability. We believe with a tendering approach, it is most appropriate. It is also the most feasible. We will not leave everything to the system operators to decide. We will make sure to have our own plans. For example, for the accessibility of the systems, we want to make sure there are connections to the systems to ensure accessibility to different communities, and that should also increase passenger demand. We will also grant land development rights to the franchise operators so that they can take a commercial perspective when developing the surrounding neighborhood to attract more locals and visitors to make use of their service. We also expect franchise operators to make use of good components that will comply with our new railway standards, especially for the Hong Kai-chun connection, so that for local, mainland, and overseas operators, they can make good use of components of great quality as well as prices to lower their costs while enhancing efficiency and financial viability. I ask members and the secretary to be more succinct so that we will not go past the time limit. Mr. Lee Chen-Kang. Thank you, Chair. I very much welcome the smart and green mass transit systems to introduce some new technology such as some medium capacity systems so that we can have more flexible and diversified options in transportation in Hong Kong. It can also plug the loopholes or the gap that is not met by the heavy rail system and the bus services. We will be able to make use of systems that are lower in cost. The country in the past years has invested much in developing medium and low capacity transportation systems. Can we really learn from the mainland's experience and innovation? For example, for the Hong Kai-chun system, we will have traffic separation. We will have high intensity of stations. It is also quite flexibility with route planning. I think this is a good example. We want to make sure we can meet the demand of having a large demand for transportation while it is being scattered, because this is not met, the demand is not met by the heavy rail service. I believe the smart and green mass transit systems will be quite useful because they are flexible and they can cover a greater area with lower costs. I think flexibility is very important. We continue to see developments in technology. While the heavy rail technology is mature, but with some new options, I think we should seek a breakthrough instead of just relying on heavy rail services. With some new technology such as medium capacity transportation systems, we have some of the projects shouldered by the MTRC that is over hundreds of billions of dollars. So for, say, the Northern Link project, as well as the South Island Line projects, can we make use of the new transportation network? Well, you haven't left much time for the Secretary to respond to your questions. I will ask the Secretary to just give a brief response. Thank you. For the South Island Line West section, indeed, it has many slopes. There is great difficulty in technology. So even with the MTRC study, it is best that we develop a medium capacity system there. And this will be the design foundation. Thank you. Mr. Chung Pui-kong. Thank you, Chair. I welcome the introduction of new mass transit systems in Hong Kong. I also welcome the government in promulgating the relevant regulatory framework. The administration has explained much about the fare mechanism and what happens if the operator breaches the conditions, which are my concerns, but because they have already been addressed, I will not repeat them. We have great demand from citizens for such transportation system. For example, the East Kowloon line, it will only be made available in the 2030s. Is it possible for us to encourage the projects to be completed as soon as possible? And if there is a delay, will there be any penalties? I will ask Ms. Amy Wong to answer the relevant questions. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member, for the questions. For the individual projects, we are making preparations. For example, for the East Kowloon system, if the operator can complete the project before 2033, we will award additional score to the operators. We also encourage operators to make use of innovative technology. If they implement the project in phases, if they have this idea, we encourage the operators to raise the different ideas so that we can consider the different proposals in scoring. Ms. Christine Fong. Thank you, Chair. I very much welcome the new mass transit systems to have essentially a replacement for the heavy rail system. I am most concerned about connections as well as fares set at the beginning. I hope the government can really play a good gatekeeper role. Right now, the MTR has different fares. So if we have, say, the Sky Shuttle and other systems, will we have fares set on a distance basis? Now, the period is said to be not more than 50 years. It's quite long. Would you consider to have the franchise period to be shorter? Even for the MTRC, with the government holding 78% of the number of shares, being a majority shareholder, it can be quite hard still for the government to ask the MTRC to change, for example, the signal system. So how can we make sure we can have the government play a proper gatekeeper? For the mass transit systems, we will grant them land development rights to the operators in exchange for them constructing the systems. For the East Kowloon system, I believe some of the structure will be constructed along the hillside. Now, the station connections will go up to Ma Tong Village, Anderson Road, or even Tsuen Wan Tunnel. We want to have connections in the form of covered pedestrian walkways, because often people have to walk at least 10 odd minutes in these areas. I hope that these can be included in the tender proposals. On land grants, we have in close to Lewis Park, even with 30 years of development, there is some demand still for transportation services. Say a spur line connection, would we have for the tender scoring additional score for spur lines? Say for Lewis Park, for the connection to Area 137, the connection will have to be under the ocean. How can we make sure we will consider the connections in advance and, if possible, provide facilities in the form of escalators and lifts? Well, I guess the Secretary won't have much time to respond. I will try as much as possible. For the franchise, we have a grant period of 50 years, but this is a maximum. We can make it lower based on the circumstances. We also understand how Ms. Christine Fong and other district councilors or district stakeholders have proposed connections. We heard this, and if we think it is technically feasible, we will include this in the tender document. Should there be room for expansion, we welcome suggestions from the potential operators. Thank you. Ms. Julie Lau. Well, all of my questions are already asked by other members. I only have a comment then. I do support the smart and green mass transit systems, the new systems, as this is something new to Hong Kong. When we visited overseas and saw relevant systems, we were wowed, and we saw different AI elements or other technological elements incorporated. I think we do not need much manpower for management. I think we're still trying to gauge this situation. I think we need to understand we should not rely on traditional regulatory models. We also do not necessarily need to make use of models in other places. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lau, for the comment. We want to move towards being more innovative and smarter. And with these medium capacity transportation systems in the mainland overseas, they generally run on electromagnetic facilities. They do not rely heavily on electricity. Some of the systems may even be autonomous. We want to make good use of big data and AI to lower the operational costs. Thank you. Mr. Yu Patlan, Deputy Chairman. The speaker's microphone is not on. For the smart and green mass transit systems regulatory framework, the proposed one, I very much support it. To introduce new systems, we need to have a new model and, of course, new legislation. For public transportation, to maintain effective, efficient, and sustainable services, it is very important. We don't want over-regulation, but then, of course, we have to ensure safety. If we have over-regulation, it can impede operations. The operations will lack flexibility, and in the end, the services may not be sustainable, and of course we don't want to see that. We need an appropriate balance in regulation. In terms of the training of talents, I think we should prepare legislation in advance. And once we have granted the franchises, we can have that become effective right away. But with talents, as I think the systems will require new talents, new technical personnel, engineering personnel. In future, if the operators' bids are successful, will we ask them to plan in advance how they're going to nurture relevant talents. I also have some specific questions on the Kai-chun project. From the cruise terminal to Kai-chun station, right now the tender document only covers this section. In future, will we have connections to Kuntong, to Yaotong? Will we have new operators, or what model will we adopt exactly?
Thank you. Mr. Yu's question is about striking an appropriate balance. Now, with new technologies and systems, it is highly likely that for units taking part in tendering, they will bring together with them operators, technology providers, as well as those responsible for construction. We look forward to tripartite collaboration, combining the strengths. We also want talent to be trained in order to transfer technologies. This is how we can keep the project going. Regarding the Kai-chun project you mentioned just now, in the tender documents, we have also provided supplementary documents. This is exactly because we want to attract investors that are interested in investing in the projects. If they can provide proposals on connecting the alignment to Yaotong or to the two hospitals in the approval mechanisms, we will give these proposals special consideration. Thank you, Mr. Lam Wai Kong. Thank you. I support the proposed regulatory framework for new mass transit systems. I have worries, however, in the granting of license of franchises and scoring. Will you consider factoring in providing a safe work environment for employees? Will you give them extra points for a safe working environment and on-the-job training? This new model comprises construction, operation, and maintenance. We don't want a model with all new technologies or imported labor. We want to have new technologies to help with the upgrading and transformation for local employees. Now we have different means of transport providing point-to-point services alongside public transport services such as buses and minibuses. I'd like to know how different operating environments can be balanced. Next, on fares, I'd like to mention one point. Under the new regulatory framework or franchises, will you require the provision of interchange discounts so that there will be interchange among buses and minibuses as well as other means of transport? Thank you. Secretary, in my answer to Deputy Chair's questions, we want technologies to be transferred through employee upskilling. We also want experience to be accumulated locally. We will pay attention to this area. Regarding the smart and green mass transit system, indeed we expect that there will be change to the transportation ecology. However, we will move towards green and smart mobility in our local transportation system, and we wanted to lead our efforts. Taking the Hon KWOK project as an example, we're going to invite tenders for the first main line. It's in close proximity to the Northern Metropolis. We want different transport operators such as buses and minibuses to complement one another in order to enhance accessibility. Regarding interchange discounts in the tender documents or in our future regulation, we will encourage transport operators to provide more interchange discounts. or we also encourage collaboration with different public transport operators. Thank you. Mr. Eric Yim. Members of the public will have more flexible and convenient or comfortable transport options. We support it. If the MTRCL does not win the bid, will the government consider injecting capital to allow private companies to enjoy management? My another question has to do with the application of new technologies. At present, APM of Guangzhou, Pudong, and Shanghai, as well as another line, is also using the rubber-tired rapid transit systems. It's been operated for a long time. I'd like to know if we can draw more reference from these mature technologies in relation to our smart and green mass transit systems. First of all, will you introduce autonomous driving? Then you can save manpower costs and the fares will be more competitive. Thank you. These are my two questions. Mr. Eric Yim, thank you for your questions. In our suggested regulatory framework for new mass transit system, the chief executive can appoint no more than 3 directors to the board of directors of the franchisee. We want to well, regarding whether the MTLCL will inject capital, we will have to factor in the scale of the system, and we will also have to take into account the overall impact of the project on society. The MTR system is scattered across Hong Kong, and the scale is different. We need to compare orange to orange. Regarding Mr. Eric Yim's reference to other systems, autonomous driving is being used in these systems, and we have been conducting visits. There are other new technologies such as the autonomous rail rapid transit systems and rubber-tired rapid transit systems. We have been in touch with such contractors. In this regard, we will explore with other regulating departments to consider introducing latest technologies such as autonomous driving to reduce the costs. Thank you, Mr. Bill Tang. Thank you. I hope that the Secretary will reply herself. Regarding the Kowloon East project, it sets out the middle of the year. Is it June, July, or August? Do we need to wait until the completion of the Kaita project before we can start the project in Kowloon East? The EMSD says that for hydrogen energy vehicles can use harbor crossings. There are tunnels in Kowloon East. Have you confirmed the tests? Next, in Annex 2, regarding the formula, deciding on the scale of the adjustments, 0.5 times composite consumer price index, usually 2%, and for wage index, that is the nominal wage index for the transport section, there will be increases in this element. Will nominal be changed to the actual wage index or company index so that we can consider the affordability of the public as well? Thank you. This system serves people living in different areas, such as the mid-levels. We are racing against the clock to identify suitable land for support and development. We are also trying very hard to complete some procedures. We try to compress the timeline. Regarding the fare adjustment mechanisms, I will ask the EMSD to take this question. Regarding the fare adjustment mechanisms, as we mentioned in Annex 2, we already talked about the scale of the adjustments. For the productivity factor, in the first 5 years, it will be set to 0. It is also said that it will not exceed the change in the median monthly household income in the corresponding period. The operators and the contractors need to make sizable investments. That's why we want them to continuously invest in the projects. I'd like to ask the EMSD to respond to your question in relation to batteries. Thank you. I thank member for showing concern over the development of hydrogen energy vehicles. We have a cross-departmental working force scrutinizing hydrogen projects. If there are such technologies, we will scrutinize this technology and its application on our workforce or working group later on. Thank you. Mr. Holden Chow, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask questions on two fronts. I'm concerned about the mass transit systems in Hon Kai-chun. I'm glad to see that at the end of this year there will be tendering exercises. As I have been saying in the past, for the development in Yunlong South, the government has announced that close to 40,000 people will move into the public housing estates. It's close to the smart and green mass transit systems. We have been asking the commissioning of the system can tie in with the time of population intake. Otherwise, in 2032, there will be a population intake, but then the smart and green mass transit systems will not be commissioned as yet in 2032. This is indeed my cause for concern, so I'd like to relay my observation to the Secretary. Regarding the regulatory framework, we understand very well, as mentioned in the document, if there is no other property or development, if we only rely on fares to support the system's operation, it's difficult. This is what we can tell just by economics. When we grant a franchise to any organization, in theory, we can withdraw or suspend the franchise when something is not done well. But at the end of the day, we understand a contractor or an operator has made a lot of investments into the project. It's not that easy at all to look for another contractor to replace the existing one. It is an important decision to decide which franchisee to choose. It's difficult to suspend or to revoke a franchise. We need to consider having a penalty mechanism, a monitoring mechanism, such as any penalty. When you have granted a franchisee to an organization, that is an important decision. When they have made a lot of investments into the project, it's not easy to have another organization replace the original one. There's not much time for the Secretary to respond.
Well, I would say Mr. Holden Chow is quite has made quite a valid point for the second area. We will strike an appropriate balance. We will have regulation. We will also have penalty mechanism, but we also want to accommodate the operations of the operator. I will ask Ms. Wang to answer the first question of Mr. Holden Chow. About the system in Hon KWOK Fu-yung close to Yuen Long South, we are still making advanced preparations. In Q4 of this year, approximately, we will ask for funding from the LegCo for design work as well as the preparatory work so as to commence the project as soon as possible. The last one to speak would be me. I'll be succinct. I do support the proposed regulatory framework, but I have a few questions. Now, for the MTR system, we're regulating the greater system, and we can cover different areas such as administration and costs. But with multiple systems, if we practice such a regulatory approach, will it make for high administrative costs? We do want the fare adjustments to be able to adjust both upwards and downwards, but for the small systems, this approach will lack flexibility. Even when they're suffering losses, they cannot increase the prices, and their operations will not be sustainable. When consider which operational model to adopt, I hope that the administration will remain flexible so as to deal with some specific scenarios or emergencies or contingencies. Now, with the if we have a connection that will go to a Kai-Tak hospital, it's just about a kilometer in length. I hope that there is this connection to provide convenience to the public. Secretary, thank you, Chair, for the kind reminder. Some members mentioned new technologies and some new systems. As said earlier, with these green and smart mass transit systems, they are different from the MTR system. We want to strike a balance with regulation to make sure these systems can truly be implemented. Regarding the fare adjustment mechanism and fare levels, I probably have not mentioned this when I replied to members earlier. When we promulgated the tender document, we have an independent financial consultant. We do expect a significant investment for the start of such operations. So we'll grant perhaps some land for development for operators. We do adopt a two-envelope approach. We have done some assessments. We expect potential operators, through appropriate fare adjustments, will be able to operate on a self-financing basis without considering the start-up costs. For the system in Kai-Tak, we do want to benefit those going to and from the hospital. So in the tender document, we have a specific document inviting potential operators to submit proposals to have a connection to the hospital. Thank you. Well, our meeting is supposed to end at 7. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Depending on how many members would like to ask questions, I'll see how the meeting is to be proceeded. Please press the request to speak button now, members who wish to speak. I will also invite representatives from the administration to come inside the conference room. All right, let's be quick.
參與呢
We have Mr. Kirk Yip, the Deputy Secretary of the Transport Logistics Bureau, and Ms. Emily Principal Assistant Secretary from the Transport Logistics Bureau, as well as Mr. Wilson Kong, Ms. Diane Chu, and Ms. Anthea Koo from the NTRC attending this meeting. They are entering the conference room now. I will perhaps ask the MTRC representatives to come inside the conference room as soon as possible, and I believe Mr. KWOK will give some opening remarks, and then the MTRC representative will give a PowerPoint presentation. Perhaps I'll ask Mr. KWOK to start with his opening remarks now. Thank you, Chair and members. Together with MTRC representatives, we will talk about the findings of the fare adjustment mechanism of the MTRC. In fact, for the last item, we have already discussed much the MTRC's fare adjustment mechanism. It has been adopted since 2007 after the railway merger. It will consider CPI changes as well as the nominal wage index for the transportation industry in the calculation of fare adjustment. There is also an affordability cap requirement. The actual fare adjustment cannot be higher than the changes in monthly median household income. The last review for the mechanism was in 2023. We want to strike a balance between stability in fares as well as the maintenance of long-term operations of MTRC. According to the formula, the 2026 fare adjustment will be 2.85%. We can see the formula playing a key role with the affordability cap requirement having regard to the monthly median household income. There will, after all, not be any change with fare adjustment this year. So we can see the mechanism being quite effective, striking a balance between its operations as well as the burden on the public. They are still trying to make contributions to society and alleviate the burden on passengers. We hope the MTRC can continue to maintain financial viability and provide safe, reliable, and comfortable services for the public. I understand the MTRC has a PowerPoint presentation. Please be brief. Mr. Kwong, you will give a presentation, right? Yes. Thank you, Chair. We have an annual fare adjustment mechanism for the adjustment of MTR fares. The mechanism is open, objective, and transparent. It balances the affordability of MTR fares and MTRC's financial viability. According to the latest figures of the government, as well as the productivity factor of 0.8%, including the fare adjustment rate rolled over from the previous year, the overall fare adjustment rate based on the fare adjustment mechanism formula is 2.85%. But because we have the affordability cap requirement with the change in median monthly household income being 0, we will freeze the fares, and the 2.85% fare adjustment will be rolled over to be implemented in the next 2 years, and the 1.96% rolled over from last year will also be rolled over to later. So from 2017 to 2026, this is the second consecutive year where we are having a fare freeze. And in the past 10 years, the fare has only seen an adjustment of half of the inflation and median monthly household income change. Railway operations require a significant and continuous investment. With the construction of railways, it requires significant investment and resource allocation, as we see railway infrastructure being in service for longer and a bigger network, we will need to invest more in railway assets. In fact, since the railway merger, the MTRC has faced the challenge of increasing operational costs. You can see here on the slide with the introduction of the fare adjustment mechanism, you can see the green line reflecting the fare adjustment. It is much lower than the increase in operational cost, median monthly household income, as well as CPI. In order to ensure railway infrastructure is in good maintenance, we have seen in recent years maintenance costs more than doubled, and we heavily rely on recurrent revenue to provide continuously to citizens quality, safe, and reliable services. As a company rooted in Hong Kong, the MTRC plays a special role in society. We try to maintain comparative fares levels as well as try to make contributions to society. We have seen changes in commute habits by citizens, and we face various challenges in the operational environment. Yet we remain steadfast in operating on a self-financing basis, and we try to give back to the community as much as possible. We're implementing a fare freeze. We will also continue to provide various concessions and specific concessionary fares for elderly persons, children, and other special needs groups. We have last year $3.2 billion provided in concessions, and over 600 million people benefited from such arrangements. We will also continue to have City Saver monthly passes as well as green minibus transfer discounts. Apart from fare concessions, as a company rooted in Hong Kong, we continue to benefit citizens by having dividends for shareholders as well as trying to give back to different stakeholders. Railway is the core of MTRC, and we all along understand how we are rooted in Hong Kong. We want to grow with citizens, and if society needs assistance, we will make sure to allocate resources to support the community as soon as possible to tide over the difficulties together. We also work with community stakeholders to provide for them different community support for youngsters, elderly persons, and different groups to disseminate the latest information to them and to support them. We remain committed to our vision to have Hong Kong as a base and provide reliable and world-class services. We commit to undertaking the expenditure in maintaining and upgrading and reviewing the railway system. We need the revenue levels to be maintained to provide world-class services still. We will strike a balance between needs of different stakeholders, including citizens, stakeholders, and other parties. We support the development of the city. We want to create long-term value for society, and we will make sure the quality of services will be enhanced to continue to serve the public. All right, thank you. We have 6 members who pressed a request to speak. Return any other members who would like to speak. If not, I'll draw the line here. We will have a 3-minute time limit. Mr. Chan Siu-hong.
Thank you. It's the second year for the MTRCL to freeze the fares in a row. I support it. It also shows that the MTR fare mechanism is effective. All around the world, be it private or public transport operator, most of it doesn't make any profit. The MTRCL is one of the few that makes profits. In some years, the profits are quite significant. The government has been using the railway plus property model. Topside development profits, rental operation of properties. The MTRCL makes quite significant profits in one year or another. According to the fair adjustment mechanism, the increase is actually saved and will roll over 2.5%, 1.96%. When they are rolled over, someday later, there will be an accumulative increase of 4.81%. We just act in accordance with the mechanism. If the MTRCL just relies on the overall property development plus railway and topside development, rental, will the MTRCL be able to share the fruits of the profits with members of the public? Just one productivity factor, it may not be enough. That is 0.8%. I'm not saying that we're going to use $10 billion as the line. What about 1%? Can we review the fair adjustment mechanism so that we can incorporate the rentals and management revenue into the mechanism? We can have a stable fair funds. When in the future there is pressure on the fares, probably this can act as a buffer. I'd like to know what the administration or the MTRCL thinks. Thank you. Deputy Secretary, thank you, member, for his question. Under the mechanism, one important element is the cap on affordability. In the past few years, we have seen frozen fares, and this shows that the mechanism has kicked in. In the adjustment cycle, this arrangement will still be in place. When there is accumulated increase, every year we take into account the local economic situation as well as the median monthly household income. The affordability cap will still be in place in order to protect passengers. Will ensure that the fares will stay affordable. The productivity factor as an element in the mechanism will be reviewed. The next review will take place in 2028. We will continue to listen to members. Is there any room for adjusting the productivity factor? There are also views that other businesses of the MTRCL should be taken into account as well. There may be changes and fluctuations. Will they cause any change to the productivity factor? We will consider it as well. Thank you. Mr. Yu Meng. The MTRCL has frozen the MTR fare for 2 years running. This shows that the mechanism is effective. This has eased the financial burden of members of the public. Ma Line and Israel Line. East, cheaper. West, more expensive. This is the phenomenon we have identified. Fan Lane to Lower One Station, but $28. What about Tin Shui Wai to Admiralty? Just $1 more expensive. Well, we can see great differences in fares in the examples I just now referred to. Is it possible to review the mechanism? We have MTR City Saver from Kowloon to Hong Kong Island. However, the City Saver actually just stops at Tsim Sha Tsui East Station. Is it possible to offer discounts or City Saver just for people living in the Northern District? Is it possible for provide discounts for people living in that area? Mr. Yip, thank you. Whenever there are any new stations or new routes, we take these opportunities to handle any differences in the fares. Mr. Wilson Kwong, just now Mr. Yu referred to irregular fares. The Israel line has its own historical context and reasons. There are different considerations at play. Whenever we can adjust the fares, then we will identify any room for adjustment. We'll try to make adjustments to irregular fares. In relation to different types of discounts, I will ask my colleague to respond. Thank you. We can put up a slide on MTR fare concessions. As for people going to work, we provide different discounts. We provide, for instance, City Saver. We also provide connecting journey discounts on MPs and monthly pass 1 to 5. We conduct studies every year. We stay attuned to the situation. We will implement discounts that are the most suitable for passengers. Thank you. Mr. Mark Chung. Just now we were discussing the framework for new mass transit systems, and the mechanism is actually similar to the one used by MTRCL. I'd like to ask about ticketing interchange. Is it possible for you to provide interchange when the MTRCL wins a bid? In the east, cheaper; in the west, more expensive. From Timor to Admiralty, 30 kilometers, $29.30. But for Changshu to Admiralty, 40 kilometers and $22.20. I understand the historical background on the Israel line. However, I've also identified the opportunity of the cross-boundary route of Hongshui-Qiu-Tianhai Railway. I want the subsidies to be put to the issue of east cheaper, west more expensive. For the PWDs, over $3.2 billion of subsidies. The subsidy doesn't provide full subsidies. You have to take money out of your own pocket. I'd like to know when the $2 concessions have been changed to 20% off, how much money can be saved. Some people have their own views on the delayed increase in fares. I believe this system is not beneficial to either the MTRCL or the government. There is an affordability cap. I believe we need to respect the mechanism. If we don't keep it and if we change it tomorrow, the mechanism will not be able to operate. Thank you. Let me first of all talk about the system in relation to the new mass transit systems before I address the questions on the existing agenda item. In the tender documents, we encourage operators to provide interchange discounts or concessions. We also encourage different transport operators to provide interchange concessions to provide discounts for passengers. Mr. Wilson Kwong, thank you. Just now, Mr. Chong referred to the issue of irregular fares. As we mentioned, when we can make adjustments to fares, we will consider ironing out the problems in relation to irregular fares. Regarding regular concessions, Ms. Chu has already explained it. Regarding the $2 or 20% off scheme, it's just been implemented, so we don't have any figures at present. What about subsidies? When we have cross-boundary routes, we will take into the local circumstances and other factors when we make adjustments. I'm going to extend the meeting by 5 minutes. Regarding the fare adjustment mechanisms, it can either increase or decrease. Rail merger took place in 2007. In 2021, a decrease of 1.85%. In property revenue, can you set aside a certain percentage point to be put into the fund as a buffer? I'd like to know if the government can introduce this proposal when we discuss this matter on the next occasion. Take Chung line as an example. Some members of the public don't mind paying the fares, but in relation to the planning of routes or station, more facilities should be provided, such as more lifts. Is it possible to upgrade the signaling system by 2028 so the Locust Park line and the Chung line can keep the frequency at 8 minutes? And for Tuma line, if the operation is slow, when you increase the fares, will that impact on arrangements for increasing the frequency? Just now, while we were discussing the mass transit system, we talked about fares as well. We have identified irregular fares. When we calculate the fares based on the number of stations, as for mid-size or medium railways, there will be standardized fares. Are you going to adjust the fares? Thank you. Regarding the fare adjustment mechanism, we have already heard members' views. After the last review, we have introduced the productivity factor, which is actually linked to the revenue regarding property development of the MTRCL, at least 0.6% of reduction. And depending on profits, there is actually room for increase. After deduction, the baseline of the fares of the MTRCL has been adjusted downwards, and there will be cumulative effect in the long run. Regarding ticketing, I'm going to ask Mr. Wilson Kwong to provide you with more information. The MTRCL has been focusing on providing safe, reliant, and highly effective services. In 2021, that was actually the only year where we reduced fares, and we were actually the only traffic operator to do so. From 2023 to 2027, we have already promised to devote $6.5 billion to upgrade our assets. Upgrading our signaling system is actually one of our projects. Going forward, we will continue to make enhancements to our system so that we can provide even better services to people in Hong Kong. Ms. Christine Fong referred to another question. That is the same district but different fares. We take into account different factors to decide the fares, such as a distance, the location of the station, convenience provided, and so on. We'll continue to keep fares in view in order to ensure that we can provide sustainable services to the public. My turn. The fare adjustment mechanism is effective indeed. Four times of fare increase, frozen more than once. There was also one downward adjustment. Most of the time there were freezes. That is owing to the threshold of median monthly household income. Indeed, you need a lot of money to upgrade and maintain your facilities, as after all, the facilities have been run for 5 decades. There is an affordability cap under the mechanism, so in some areas you cannot increase fares. Cash flow won't benefit, so you need to consider how to solve the problem. How are you going to implement the cumulative increase? You need to deal with it. For members of the public, if you have cumulative increase, and whenever you can increase the fares, then when you activate the cumulative increase, that is actually a great burden to the public. In the review of the adjustment mechanisms, I hope you will think how to cancel the cumulative increase mechanism. Can the government buy out the cumulative increase mechanism so that the MTRCL will have sufficient funds to operate the system, to run the system? As after all, the government actually gets quite significant dividends from the MTRCL. On the one hand, you can get dividends, and on the other hand, you can help the public and also the MTRCL. When it comes to property development, there are many matters to be discussed. That is how the government can let MTRCL have more revenue so that this cumulative increase can be offset. It is meaningless to have increases being accumulated. It's just like a snowball. I hope that the government will consider how to solve this problem. I'm just expressing my views. I'd like to know if the government has any simple responses. If not, doesn't matter.
Thank you, Chair, for your comments. We do know the views. Dividend revenue is a revenue for the Treasury, and when we allocate the resources, we'll see how we can make use of such in different policy areas, but we do note your comments. Thank you. All right, that's it for the meeting. There's no other business. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.